أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يوصي نعمه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بحد الهمم ولا يناله غوث الفتن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت محدود ولا أجل ممدود فترى الخلائق بقدرته ونشر رياح برحمته ووتد بالسخر ما يدعى عرض ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيبنا وحبيب رب العالمين بالقاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعن على أدائهم أجمعين من أول يوم ظلمهم إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المبين وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ ابتلى إبراهيم ربه بكلمات فأتمهن قال إني جاعلك للناس إماما قال ومن ذريتي قال لا ينال عهد الظالمين صدق الله العلي العظيم. Before we get started, please, brothers and sisters, recite a Surah Fatiha for the Mahrumeen of Brother Shahid Naqwi and Sister Kazmiya Shahid. They're the sponsors of tonight's lecture. Please recite a Surah Fatiha for all of their Mahrumeen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Before yesterday, because yesterday was the shahadat of Lady Khadija salawatullah alayha, we spoke about her, but before we spoke about Lady Khadija, the day before yesterday, we started the biography of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, and in that biography we had just gotten to his early biography, or his childhood and his teenage and his early adult life. We hadn't gone to the crux of Hazrat Ibrahim's life, where Namrud Lanatullah alayhi, he throws him into the fire and everything, or the events that happened after that. But inshallah we will get there. But one of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about regarding Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, it's in this verse that I started this lecture off, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذْ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ قَالَ إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا قَالَ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي قَالَ لَا يَنَالُ عَهْدِ الظَّالِمِينَ. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, and when his Lord tried Ibrahim with certain words, Hazrat Ibrahim, he fulfilled them. Meaning that dream that Hazrat Ibrahim had, inshallah we'll get to that too. But tonight what I want to focus on is imamat itself, because Hazrat Ibrahim at the end, he was an imam also. He was a Nabi, he was a Rasul, and he was an imam also. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, surely I will make you an imam of men. To Hazrat Ibrahim, after he passed all the tests and trials, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Hazrat Ibrahim, surely I will make you an imam of men. And Hazrat Ibrahim, he replies, and what about my offspring? Ya Allah, what about my offspring? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he replies that my covenant, meaning that this imamat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving Ibrahim, this is a covenant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he says that my covenant does not include the unjust. So it becomes necessary for us to analyze this aspect of Hazrat Ibrahim's life, of imamat itself and what imamat is, because when it comes to Shia belief, Shia doctrine, one of the basics, or one of the bases of our usul ad-din is imamat, tawheed, adl, nabuwat, and imamat. So when it comes to imamat, brothers and sisters, we know that after the demise of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Muslims, they were divided into two groups. One group believed that the Holy Prophet did not designate a successor after himself, and this group believed that he left it up to his ummah to get together to meet and decide amongst themselves who the leader should be, or who the imam should be, or who should be the successor to the Holy Prophet. And this group today lives on, and today this group is known as the Ahl Sunnah. The other group believed that the Holy Prophet was infallible, immaculate, and free of sin and error, and had knowledge so that he could holistically lead people and preserve the essence of Islam so that it would continue until the day of resurrection. And this group of people believed that the selection, or the Holy Prophet, he had selected someone to come after him, he had selected someone to be the imam after him, and that selection, or that type of selection of such a person who had all of these same qualities that the Holy Prophet had, could only and only come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Holy Prophet of Islam. And the Holy Prophet did in fact select someone, and he selected Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam as his successor. And this group of people that still lives on today, this group of people, they're known as the Shia. The topic of imamat, when it comes to the topic of imamat, because this topic is a polarizing topic, it is a crucial topic between Shia and Sunni school of thought, but as many people believe, it's a polarizing topic. Tonight I want to talk about imamat and answer a lot of the questions that people might have about it. For example, what is imamat? What is the philosophy behind imamat? Are there conditions and special qualities of an imam? Who is to select this imam? And what does the Quran say about imamat? And what do the traditions of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say about imamat? Because a lot of the Ahl Sunnah, they have this question: imamat doesn't exist. Where's imamat? Imamat isn't Quran. Imam does not exist in Quran. And inshallah, this verse that I started this lecture off with, that disproves them, in the sense that no, imam does exist in the Quran. Imamat, the concept of imamat does exist in the Quran. It isn't something that the Shias made up, but they got that from the Quran itself. So tonight I want to get rid of some of those misconceptions that people might have about it. But before we begin the discussion, a point should be made, is that the moment that this discussion, or the discussion, revolves around imamat, if whoever, a scholar, anyone is talking about imamat, and a Shia scholar talks about imamat and they're trying to defend the concept of imamat, what happens? People immediately say, like, you know what, why are we even having such discussions? What's the point of these discussions? Muslim unity should be discussed, and not the successor, or whoever the successor was to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because this discussion of whoever was the successor to the Holy Prophet, it causes disunity among the Muslims. People say this, they have this idea, and then what happens? The topic ends up becoming closed. No one wants to speak about it anymore. But is this way of thinking correct? The thing is, that which causes differences and disunity are discussions and debates which are based on prejudice, hatred, and which are illogical. But discussions which are logical and reasonable, free of any type of discrimination, they're not only a cause for those differences to be lessened, but what happens, rather, these types of discussions, they decrease the distances between the two schools of thought. A common belief, a common point of belief, or a common belief point is strengthened between the two schools of thought. Because one school of thought, it says imamat doesn't exist in the Quran. The other school of thought, it says no, imamat does exist in the Quran. So it becomes necessary for the other school of thought that doesn't believe it exists. If I make a claim that no, it exists in the Quran, then the next question that should be asked is, hey, if it exists in the Quran, where is it in the Quran? Where does it exist in the Quran? The problem is that Sunnis themselves, they're divided into four sects. They're the Hanafis, Hanbalis, Shafis, Malikis. The existence of differences amongst these four groups does not cause disunity when they talk about the differences that exist within themselves. But when the Shias talk about the differences that exist with the Sunnis, all of a sudden there's disunity. The only reason it will cause disunity is because the other side is not willing to open up their mind and listen. That's why it causes disunity. Because within those four schools of thought, within the Sunni branch of Islam, there's four schools of thought. There isn't disunity amongst those four schools of thought when they talk about the difference, and there's differences amongst those schools of thought. There isn't a disunity when they talk about those differences amongst themselves. But all of a sudden, when the Shias want to talk about the differences between the Shia and Sunni school of thought, it causes disunity. Like I said, the only reason it causes disunity is because the other side does not want to listen. And now that that's cleared up, to begin with, what does Imam mean? What is an Imam? What does Imam mean? Imam, in the general sense, it just means leader. Leader of the Muslims. But in the context of the Shias, in the belief of the Shias, Imam refers to a person who is the successor to the Holy Prophet in all areas of life. With the difference that the Holy Prophet ﷺ, he's the founder of the school, and the Imam is the guardian and the one who preserves Islam. Revelation was revealed to the Holy Prophet, but revelation is not revealed to an Imam. Meaning that the Holy Prophet of Islam ﷺ, Islam was completed with the Holy Prophet. The Quran was complete with the Holy Prophet. All of the verses that needed to be revealed were revealed onto the Holy Prophet. But after the Holy Prophet leaves this world, after he left this world, the Shias, they say that there needs to be someone here who can explain the Quran to the people. There needs to be someone here who can guide the people to the right path when differences arise. And from the Shia point of view, we say that these Imams, they learned from the Holy Prophet and they had incomparable knowledge. From the point of view of Shiism, an immaculate Imam does not just mean leader of Islamic rule, but rather it includes spiritual and material, internal and external leadership as well. Because when we get to what the Sunni school of thought, their idea is about Imam, it's somewhat different from what the Shias say. In other words, we Shias, we say that the Imams are responsible for leadership in all levels. They're responsible for the preservation and guardianship of Islamic beliefs and ideology without any errors or deviation, and they are the selected people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we'll get to what that means and why we say that they are selected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, by the end of the lecture. But the Sunnis, they do not see Imamat in this way. They only understand Imam as the leader of Islamic society, and that's it. In other words, leaders in every age and time are the Khalifs of the Holy Prophet and the Imam of the Muslims. It doesn't matter what kind of person the leader is. He can be a murderer, he can be an alcoholic, but because he has authority, he is the Imam. To them, there is no criteria for a person becoming an Imam. That's it. Is there criteria or not? We will get to it in the later part of the lecture also. But because our school of thought emphasizes Imamat, it becomes our duty to prove its necessity and the philosophy behind it. So when they ask, what proof is there of Imamat from the Quran? If you give them hadith, they say, hey, you know what, these are your hadiths. Hadiths are made up, we don't accept your hadiths. Okay, then you accept the same Quran I accept. The same Arabic Quran that you read, that's the same Arabic Quran that we read. There might be differences of opinion in the tafsir of the verses, but when it comes to the Arabic of the Quran, no, it's exactly the same. Your Quran starts off with Surah Al-Hamd, our Quran starts off with Surah Al-Hamd. There's no difference. It's only the Wahhabi school of thought that's made up this difference between Shia Quran and Sunni Quran. But from the Quran itself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in chapter 17, verse number 71, يَوْمَ نَدْعُ كُلُّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ, on the day when we shall summon all men with their Imam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly states in this verse that there will come a day when mankind will be summoned with their Imam. Not with their Prophet, but with their Imam. This is a point that everyone needs to think about, because this verse tells us that we will be resurrected with our Imam. So that means that Imam needs to exist until the end of time, so that the people living can be resurrected with him. In the Prophet's time, the Holy Prophet ﷺ, he was the Prophet and Imam. So the ones that died in his time will be resurrected with him. Who was the Imam after him? Because this verse of the Quran, it says that people will be resurrected with their Imam. So who was the Imam after the Holy Prophet? If you answer the Khalifas, were they qualified to be Imams? Because among those you consider to be Khalifas, you have people like Yazid Lanatullah alayh. On the day of judgment, will Imam Hussein alayhi salam, will he be summoned with Yazid as his Imam? Na'udhu billah. Or no, was it Imam Hussein who was the real Imam? This is a question that needs to be asked. It can clearly be seen in the Holy Quran that the position of Imamat or leadership is the highest station that a human being can possibly attain, and that it is even higher than the status of prophethood, because we read in Surah Al-Baqarah verse number 124 about Prophet Ibrahim, and this was the verse that I started this lecture off with, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, and when his Lord tried Ibrahim with certain words, he fulfilled them. These certain words was what? It was the dream of Hazrat Ibrahim, where he is sacrificing Hazrat Ismail for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Hazrat Ibrahim, he fulfilled this dream, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, surely I will make you an imam of men. Ibrahim, he says what? He says, Ya Allah, what about my offspring? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he replies, Ya Ibrahim, my covenant does not include the unjust. Ibrahim alayhi salam, after moving through the station of prophethood and his divine mission and victory in the various divine tests, is then given the valuable position of imamat, the valuable position of leadership over the people. Before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him imamat, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was already a prophet. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was already a Rasul. He was already known as Khalilullah. It was after prophethood that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him imamat. Imamat was the last ukhda that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him. From this verse of the Quran, we can see that one criterion for an imam is that this imam from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this imam cannot be a zalim. This imam cannot be unjust. So how can we then believe that anyone that comes into power can be an imam? According to this, Yazid Lanatullah alayhi cannot be an imam. Muawiyah Lanatullah alayhi cannot be an imam. Anyone who usurped the right of someone else is considered to be unjust zalim. Anyone who usurps the right of someone else is considered to be unjust, and therefore they cannot be imam. They can't be imam. Anyone that usurps the right. But one of the philosophies behind the necessity of prophethood was that since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this human being with a purpose and a goal, there needs to be someone who reminds them what that purpose is and what that goal is when this human being goes away or goes further away from that goal. As all Muslims believe, now that prophethood has come to an end with Khatamul Anbiya, Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, who is supposed to guide the human beings when this human being diverges away from that set goal? If we say that he didn't leave a guide, then on the day of judgment, we can say, Ya Allah, you brought us into existence 1400 years after your last prophet. I had no guide. If I went astray, it's because I had no guide. So who is the guide? If you reply that, you know what, the Quran is our guide. Well, I would reply, do you and I know the interpretation of the verses of the Quran? Isn't it because we don't know the true interpretations of the Quran, there's so much disunity among the Muslims? There's so much disunity among the Muslims. Why? Because the true interpretation we don't know. Some of us, one school of thought, it takes it from companions. The other school of thought, it takes it from the Ahlul Bayt. There's so much disunity. If we knew the true interpretation of the Quran, why are there so many different tafasir of the Quran? So that tells you what? That tells you that there must be someone who knows the true interpretation so that he can guide us to what is right and what is wrong. Secondly, we know that within our own being, in addition to knowledge and wisdom, other motives such as emotion also exist. The emotion of self-love, the emotion of anger, the emotion of lust, and other types of emotions and instincts. Without doubt, if we do not control our desires and emotions and they dominate over us, even our knowledge and intellect will be imprisoned, and the human being, like the oppressors of history, becomes lower than animals when this lust, when this desire overtakes our existence, then we're willing to exceed all bounds there are. The whatever rules, whatever regulations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put down, forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rules and regulations for a minute. Just the laws of the land. Just the laws of the land. If there's so much, for example, if there's so much greed within myself, do you think I'm going to care about what the laws say? No. All I want to do is have as much wealth as possible. I'll find ways to bypass those laws. I'll find ways to break those laws. Why? Because now there's a desire within me. It's turned into a poison. That desire is basically turned into a poison where I'm willing to break all necessary laws to get what I want. Other examples also. There's so many examples, but this is why we need a teacher who can teach us, or who we can learn ethics from. We need a model so that we can learn from them according to that principle where one narrates something or one tells us something and the other follows. A perfect and disciplined human being from every point of view is required to prevent the rebellion of our instincts and to have virtuous principles. There needs to be this teacher who can guide us, who tells us, hey, you know what, there's too much greed. Hey, you know what, there's too much lust. Hey, you know what, there's too much of this, it's poisoning you. There needs to be this perfect human. The only way this person will know is if they themselves have risen above this. When we look at Islamic history and we look at how much or how the Muslims killed each other to be imams of the ummah, we need to ask ourselves a question. Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not know that this was going to happen if He did not leave a representative on earth? He never, when you look at Islamic history, when you look at the history of the prophets, He never left the past groups without His representatives and never allowed them to choose the leader. So why would all of a sudden He change His mind now? You look at from Hazrat Adam all the way to the last prophet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been the one who's always chosen for the religion to stay intact, for the religion to continue the way He intended. He has always chosen His representatives, from Hazrat Adam alayhi salam all the way to the last prophet. Thirdly, we know that the divine religion at the time, all of the divine religions at the time of their descent, when they're descended onto prophets, when the revelations are given to the prophets, they're completely pure. Christianity was completely pure when Hazrat Isa alayhi salam was alive. Judaism was completely pure when Hazrat Musa alayhi salam was alive. Islam was completely pure when the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was alive. So when these religions are completely pure, we know from history that when the prophets are there, these religions are completely pure. But the moment that the prophet leaves this world, gradually the religion becomes polluted and superstitions are added to them, so that the purity of that first day is completely lost. It is here that an infallible leader must always act as a guardian of the authenticity of a school, so that they guard against any deviation, extremism, alien ideas and superstitions, because if religious doctrine be without such a leader in a very short period of time, they will lose their authenticity and sincerity. You see that what happened with Judaism, what happened with Christianity, what happened with Islam. The Islam that we have now is not the same Islam that was 1400 years ago. Maybe the core of it is the same, but even the core, if we were to analyze even the core, even when it comes to Tawheed, there's a difference. The Shia school of thought, they have a different idea of Tawheed. The Sunni school of thought, they have a different idea of Tawheed. In the sense that the Sunni school of thought, they believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na'uzubillah, He has hands, He has feet, He has all these characteristics that we as human beings have. Whereas the Shias, when it comes to Tawheed, they say no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above all of this. These are basically limiting factors for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what does that tell you? That gradually Islam has changed. Islam had changed after the Holy Prophet and has changed, and you can see those changes until today. And in order for this person to be able, or this imam to be able to keep the religion, the way it was when it was revealed, it becomes necessary that this person, this Imam, shares some of the same characteristics of the Prophet, and this is where infallibility comes in. Just as the bringer of the religion needs to be infallible, so too does the guardian. They also need to be infallible. An Imam must have the station of purity of being free from sin and error, otherwise he cannot lead and be a model of the people and receive the trust of the society. The Imam must consume the heart and soul of the people and be commanded or his command be accepted without question. Just the way the command of the Holy Prophet needs to be accepted without question. Why? Because the Holy Prophet is Masoom. That same way the command of the Imam also needs to be accepted. Why? Because the Imam needs to be Masoom. Then that command will only and only fully be accepted when we realize or when we accept the fact that the Imam is Masoom. A person who has sinned can never receive such trust and from all points of view be trusted, or this person can never be confirmed. How can a person who in his daily life commits error have his opinions be relied upon in the work of society? When the people need to follow him, won't they question him? Won't they question if he tells them to do something? Won't they say, hold on a second, we saw you do this complete opposite, now you're telling us to do this? This is why this type of Imam, they need to be completely error-free. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu uti'u Allah wa uti'u Rasula wa ulil amr minkum. And this is the verse that is used by the other school of thought to show that, hey, you know what, anyone that's in power, they need to be listened to. What is this verse? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, oh, you who believe, obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obey the messenger and those in authority from amongst you. This is the verse of the Quran. And this verse, like I said, is used many times to prove that it doesn't matter who holds authority, but because they hold authority, we need to obey them. And this is the verse that is used in some parts of the Islamic world where a lot of these kings, because they have authority, they're using this verse of the Quran to say, hey, the Quran is saying this. Because we have power, it becomes necessary, it's wajib for you to listen to what we are saying in parts of the Islamic world. But when you analyze the verse, this interpretation that people have about it, that anyone that has power, they're the ones that need to be obeyed. When you analyze the verse, no, it doesn't make any sense. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we analyze the verse, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu uti'u Allah wa uti'u Rasul wa ulil amr minkum. So when we analyze this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we were talking about Isma. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Masoom. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is Masoom. So the ulul amr minkum, the ulul amr must also be Masoom. Why? Because Masooms will never contradict each other. A Masoom will never contradict. But a Ghair Masoom can contradict a Masoom. If the Prophet commands something and the Ulul Amr was non-Masoom and he commands the total opposite, whose command would you follow? Whose command would you follow? The Holy Prophet is not here right now physically with us. The commands that are in the Quran, they're here. Now, if the Ulul Amr commands something that's against the Quran, what will you do? If this Ulul Amr was Ghair Masoom, if he was fallible, what would you do? Would you listen to the Ghair Masoom because he's Ulul Amr? Or no, would you listen to the Holy Prophet and what he said because he is Masoom? This is one of the reasons that the Ulul Amr needs to be Masoom, so that the possibility of this contradiction doesn't exist. Just the mere possibility. If the possibility doesn't exist, then it will never exist in the world. Secondly, in this same verse, the command to obey the Ulul Amr directly follows the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet. Does it mean Ulul Amr as leaders and rulers in every age, in every environment? Are Muslims of each time period in each country obligated to follow the commands of the leaders unquestionably the way they have to follow the commands of the Holy Prophet and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without any questions? This does not agree with any kind of logic, because most of the leaders in the various ages of Islamic history, they were deviated and oppressive. You look at Banu Umayyad, nothing but oppression. You look at Banu Abbas, nothing. You see nothing but oppression. In the time of Banu Umayyad, you had Yazid Lamtlaleh, who would drink wine openly and not pray. Were you to listen to him if he tells you to do something? This is why the ulul amr needs to be infallible. Infallibility doesn't come from us, it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose His prophets, He would choose the ulul amr, and they are the imams to be followed. So the question arises of who chooses the imam? Sunnis believe that the Holy Prophet of Islam, he passed away, he died not having selected his successor, and they believe that this responsibility belongs to the Muslims themselves to select their imam. And they take this and they undertake this act through ijma or consensus. They add that this program was implemented the first time for the first Khalifa who was selected with the consensus of the Ummah, meaning that Abu Bakr, because the Holy Prophet did not leave a successor who came, he left it to the Ummah decided on Abu Bakr. Then Abu Bakr, he selected the second Khalifa and introduced him as the second Khalifa. And the second Khalifa, he selected a council of 6 people to select the person who should succeed him. So towards the end of Uthman's reign, the people, they rose up against him for several reasons, and inshallah, if we ever get the time, we will go into those reasons about why the Muslims themselves killed their own Khalifa. But for whatever reasons they were, and before he had a chance to select his successor or select a council, he was killed. At this time, the majority of the people, they turned to Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib al-Islam, and they selected him to be Khalifa. They pledged their allegiance to him as the successor of the Holy Prophet, other than who? Muawiyah lanatullah alayh, who was the governor of Damascus and who was certain that Imam Ali would not support him. Meaning that he knew for a fact, up until that time, Muawiyah lanatullah alayh, he was the governor of Damascus. He knew the reason he didn't support Imam Ali is because he knew as soon as Imam Ali was to become Khalifa, he would take the governorship of Muawiyah away. And that's the exact same thing, that's exactly what Amir al-Mu'minin wanted to do, and that's why, that's the real reason why Siffin, the Battle of Siffin, it started. Even though he he started beating the drums of justice for Usman, but that really wasn't his intention at all, because when you look at history, you see that Usman, he had asked for soldiers, and Muawiyah, he had gotten the letter, but on purpose he didn't send those soldiers because he was waiting for that. But that's different. That's history. Inshallah, one day we'll talk about that part of history. But what did Muawiyah do? He raised the flag of opposition, which was the beginning of a disgraceful event in the history of Islam, and caused the shedding of blood of many innocent people. The condition of imamat, according to the commentaries of the Holy Quran, is knowledge of all of the principles and practices of Islam, so that this imam, they can guard and preserve the divine laws of the religion. One. Another condition is that the imam must be infallible, and the discerning of these conditions can clearly only be done by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Holy Prophet. It is He who knows in whose spirit cleanness has shown its rays, and it's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Holy Prophet who would know who is the most knowledgeable amongst the people after the Holy Prophet. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Holy Prophet who would know, who's to be the Masum. Innama yuridullahu liyuzhibankum rijsa ahlal bayt. This verse, Ayat al-Tathir, who does it apply to, brothers and sisters? Because this verse is a proof of isma. This verse is a proof of infallibility. When Amir al-Mu'mineen, when Abu Bakr, he became Khalifa, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he goes to him, and when he had completely rejected Lady Zahra's request, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he goes to Abu Bakr, and he asks him, tell me, if someone makes a claim against Lady Zahra, if someone comes and makes a claim to you against Lady Zahra salawatullah alayha, and Lady Zahra, she rejects that claim, what would you do? Abu Bakr, he quickly answers, I'd mete out justice. And Amir al-Mu'mineen goes, what do you mean? He goes, if it's proven that this person who makes the claim against Lady Zahra, if his word is true, if it's proven, then I side in his favor or her favor. That's when Amir al-Mu'mineen says, if you do that, then you've become kafir. You've left the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Abu Bakr, he goes, how so? He goes, why? Because now you would have denied Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that she is pure, and you would have accepted someone else's testimony, which would mean that she is impure. Purity and impurity meaning of all types. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept them away from all types of impurity. Lying is a spiritual impurity. Amir al-Mu'mineen says that you would be saying that Lady Zahra, she's a liar. By accepting that other person's testimony, you're basically saying that Lady Zahra salawatullah alayha, she's a liar. If as soon as you say that, Amir al-Mu'mineen says you left religion, you left the fold of Islam. Think about what Amir al-Mu'mineen, this wasn't the only time. Amir al-Mu'mineen said that to this person so many times. You left the religion, you've left the religion. Lady Zahra salawatullah alayha herself, in the khutbah, in the sermon, she says, have you all left the religion of my father? But those people who place the selection of the Imam and the Khalifa of the Holy Prophet in the hands of the people, in truth changed the meaning of Imamat in the Holy Quran and limited it to meaning only leadership and giving organization to the affairs of the people. Otherwise, the condition of Imamat in the general and complete sense can only be determined by the Creator, and it is only and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who knows who has these qualities to be an Imam, the rightful Imam. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even he could not have selected by the vote of the people, meaning that the Holy Prophet, even he didn't have the right to go to the people and ask them, who do you want to be the leader after me? No, even the Holy Prophet doesn't have this right. It's only and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has the right to choose who comes after a prophet. Even a prophet doesn't choose. What does the Quran say about Imamat? The Quran, it says, وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِمْ فِعْلَ الْخَيْرَاتِ وَإِقَامَ الصَّلَاةِ وَإِيتَاءَ الزَّكَاةِ وَكَانُوا لَنَا الْعَابِدِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and we made the Imams who guided people by our command. وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً. We made them Imams. So in this verse of the Quran, we learn who chooses the Imams. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we made them Imams. The people don't choose who gets to be the Imam. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The same way to Prophet Ibraheem alayhi salam, he says, I have made you an Imam of mankind. So what does this mean? This means that Imamat is not in our hands. Imamat is not even in the hands of the Prophet. But Imamat is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the one who determines who gets to be an Imam. Let's assume for a moment that the Prophet of Islam ignored this vital issue of successor, and the Muslims themselves were duly bound to choose his successor. But we know that consensus means the consensus of the Muslims, and you don't see that type of consensus anywhere. You don't see that anywhere. When it came to the first Khalifa, only a group of the companions who lived in Medina made the decision to make Abu Bakr Khalifa. It wasn't ijma, it wasn't all of the Muslims together that made Abu Bakr Khalifa. In Medina itself, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam and a large number of the Banu Hashim, they did not participate in this. So what kind of consensus was this? Secondly, if this type of consensus is correct, then why did the first Khalifa, why did he not use the same method in choosing the second one? Why did he personally select his successor? What did they say? The reply to this, they say that well he didn't want, Abu Bakr didn't want to happen, or he didn't want that same thing to happen which happened with him. Whatever disagreements there were, he didn't want. He was looking at the benefit of the Islamic Ummah. Well, I don't understand. The Holy Prophet ﷺ, he didn't have that foresight. Leave the Holy Prophet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not have that foresight, but Abu Bakr had that foresight. If choosing the successor would have caused unity amongst the Muslim Islamic Ummah, isn't that what the Holy Prophet would have done? Isn't that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have done? Did they leave it for the Islamic Ummah to decide because they wanted disunity amongst the Muslims? No. If Saqifa was correct, then why did Abu Bakr choose a successor? 1, 2. If choosing a successor was correct, then why did he choose a council of 6 people? And that too, that was just a circus act, the way he had implemented, or the way he wanted everything to be done. And when you read the history book, you can see that there was only one person that he really wanted to be Khalifa, and that was Usman. That's why he had those people there. And that just turned into a circus act. But if the first way is correct, there's no need for the second way. If the second way is correct, there's no need for the third way. If you talk about ijma, wasn't it all of the people that decided that, Ya Ali, we want you to be Khalifa? Yes. But whatever the case is, it's clear through Sunni and Shia traditions that the leaders of the Ummah after the Prophet would be 12 in number, and not more and not less. Sahih Bukhari, in the 9-volume version, there's a narration by Jabir ibn Samara who says that I heard the Prophet say there will be 12 leaders after me. Then he said, I heard that my father said he heard the Prophet say they will be from the Quraysh. In Sahih Muslim, the same tradition has been recorded in this way, that in the way that Jabir says that I heard the Prophet say, Islam will always be dear until 12 Khalifs and successors. Then he says something which I did not understand. I asked my father what it was, and he says that the Prophet had said, they are all from Quraysh. The successors, the Khalifs, are all from Quraysh. And this tradition does not, when you look at this tradition, it doesn't conform to any school of thought except the Shia school of thought. Why? Because its explanation is very clear according to the Shias. The ulama of the Sunni school of thought, they have a difficult time answering this. Who are the 12 Khalifas? The 12 Khalifas that are from Quraysh. All of those Khalifas that ruled the Islamic Empire, they were from Quraysh. But the Holy Prophet, he said, hey, there's going to be 12 Khalifas. Who are these 12 Khalifas? Who are the 12 Khalifas? Does it refer to the first 4 Khalifas and then the Umayyad and the Abbasid Khalifas? If you add all of them up, there's more than 12. And then on top of that, among these, you have people like Yazid Lanatullah alayhi, and from among the Abbasid Khalifas, you have people like Mansur Diwanaqi, you have people like Harun Rashid, who are oppressors of their time, who are the Yazids of their own time. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this imamat is not for zalimeen, now you come and you make these people the imams. It's not possible that these types of people can be considered to be Khalifs of the Prophet, and among which is an honor in Islam. No matter how much we simplify the criteria, the imams clearly do not include these people. It should be noted that in some traditions which have reached us from the Sunnis, the names of the 12 imams have clearly appeared and their names specified. So, for example, Sheikh Sulaiman Kandozi, a famous Sunni scholar, in his book Nabiullah Mawadda, he says a Jewish man he came to the Holy Prophet, and among the questions he asked was, who would be his successor. And inshallah, this is where we will end tonight's lecture. This Jewish man, he says, who will be your successor? The Holy Prophet, says to him that after me, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and then my two sons, Hassan and Hussein, and after Hussein, 9 imams will follow from his children. The Jewish man, this is the whole narration. The Jewish man, he said, name them. The Holy Prophet, he names them. When Hussein leaves this world, his son Ali, and then after him his son Muhammad, and after Muhammad his son Jafar, and after Jafar his son Musa, and after Musa his son Ali, and after Ali his son Muhammad, and after Muhammad his son Ali, and after Ali his son Hassan, and after Hassan his son Muhammad al-Mahdi alayhi salam. These are the 12 imams. These are the 12 khalifas that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's messenger is talking about. It's interesting to note that in the Sunni books it is recorded from the Prophet that a person who dies not knowing the imam of his time is as a man who has died in the age of ignorance. These traditions clearly show that a pure imam lives in every age who must be recognized, and whoever does not do so dies as if he has died in the age of ignorance. So in this day and age, brothers and sisters, who is the imam? Who is the imam in this day and age? We as Shias, we have our 12th imam and we're waiting for him. So who is the imam? If he hasn't been born yet, then all of these people that are dying, they're dying as if they're in the age of ignorance, if he hasn't been born yet. And all the people that have died so far, they've died as if they died in the age of ignorance, Jahiliyyah. But from this lecture, I hope you understand a little bit about how important imamat is. That imamat isn't something that the Shias, they picked out of their pockets. No, imamat is a concept that is within the Quran itself. Imamat is a concept that can be proven. It doesn't need Shia hadith, it doesn't need narration. Imamat can be proven just aqlan itself. That there is a necessity for a leader to exist that knows the interpretation of the Quran so they can guide us. Now that prophethood has completely come to an end, there needs to be a leader who continues or who explains to us the religion. Why? Because in every age, Islam is the same. But in every age, because of time and because of technology, new rules need to be brought into existence also from whatever there is in the Quran. Who is going to bring out those new rules? Who's going to bring out those laws? This is why there needs to be an imam in every age. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So brothers and sisters, please recite another Surah Fatiha for the sponsors of tonight's majlis, Brother Shahid Naqwi and Sister Kazmiya Shahid. Please recite Surah Fatiha for their marhumin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Bismillah. And brothers and sisters, if anyone else would like to sponsor these lectures, please get in contact with Brother Asad Zaidi, and he'll let you know what you can do to sponsor these lectures. And at the end, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep the Imam of our time safe, make his reappearance as soon as possible. Let us, our families, and anyone that wants to sacrifice their life for him and his cause be able to sacrifice their life for him and his cause. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive the sins of our family members. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive the sins of the mu'mineen, mu'minat, and to forgive the sins of all of those marhumeen, mu'mineen, mu'minat that do not have anyone to ask on their behalf. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Inshallah, brothers and sisters, I will see you again tomorrow.